My name is Nancy Roberts. I'm an economics professor at Arizona State University, and today's topic is income elasticity. So these measures of elasticity are all just measures of responsiveness. And a measure called income elasticity is going to measure how sensitive, how responsive demand is to changes in income. Now, you'll remember from our discussion of demand that income is one of the determinants of demand. If goods are normal goods, which most goods are, when income goes up, demand goes up. And so what we want to measure today is how responsive is demand to changes in income, because it's very different depending on what the good in question is. So let's have an example. I'm going to draw two demand curves here. I'm going to draw a demand curve for bread. Demand for bread. There's a demand for bread. I'm going to draw a demand curve for shoes. We expect demand curves to look like that. Now, let's say that the demand for bread looks like this if the average income in the area is $10,000. So that's the average income in the area. And if the average income in the area is $10,000, the demand for bread looks like that. If the average income in the area is $10,000, the demand for shoes looks like that. Now, if income goes up, let's say income increases from $10,000 to $20,000, average income in the area increases. What we know is, since bread and shoes are normal goods, that both of these demand curves are going to increase. And so I'm just going to draw an increase in the demand for shoes. I'm going to put demand income equals 20,000. So this is what the demand curve would look like if income goes up to 20,000. Over here we'd have the same thing if demand would look like this if income is 20,000. So what you can see is both are normal goods, demand increases. But what you also can see is that the response in the market for shoes is much bigger than the response in the market for bread. And so we can actually measure that, and we call it income elasticity. And the measure that we use is the percentage change in demand, because demand has changed, that comes about because there's been some percentage change in income. So there's a change in demand when income went from 10,000 to 20,000. There's a change in demand when income went from 10,000 to 20,000. And so we can let's just put a price in there, and let's say that demand increased from 8 loaves of bread per month to 10 loaves of bread per month. And over here, whatever the price was for shoes, let's say that the pairs of shoes increased from 10 pairs per time period to 20 pairs per time period. So you might ask yourself, well, why would demand for shoes increase so much more than demand for bread? Well, there's only so much bread you can eat. If your income goes up, if it doubles, you're not going to buy twice as much bread just because you have twice as much money. I mean, insulin would be the same way. If your income goes up, you're not going to rush out and buy a whole bunch more insulin. Shoes, on the other hand, can be worn over and over again, and they're durable, they're storable. It's not like if I don't wear them today, they're going to fade away. So the nature of the good in question is important when it comes to measuring income elasticity. So what I'll do is show the difference, and we'll come up with an income calculation income elasticity calculation in the market for bread and in the market for shoes, and we will interpret both of them, because coming up with a number isn't sufficient. I mean, you have to know what you found. What is this number? So, for example, in both of these cases, I1, income level 1, is $10,000, and income level 2 is $20,000. Can you see that? And in the market for bread, demand 1 for bread was 8, demand 2 for bread was 10, over here demand 1 for shoes was 10, demand 2 for shoes was 20. So now we can use our formula and determine income elasticity for both of these goods, and we're going to find out that it's very different. But again, we're going to use what we call the midpoint formula. What are we going to use for income? Are we going to use 10,000 or 20,000? Well, we're going to use the midpoint. We're going to use 15,000. What are we going to use for the demand? Are we going to use 8 or 10? Midpoint. Same thing over here. So plugging that information, just like we did in the previous video on price elasticity of demand, my bread calculation is 15,000, because that's my midpoint, right? 15,000 divided by 9, income demand, times the change in demand was 2, the change in income was 10,000. So income elasticity for bread is 0.33. We do the same thing over here. Again, I'm going to use the midpoint for income. So income is going to be 15,000. I'm going to use the midpoint for demand, which is going to be 15. The change in quantity is 10. The change in income is 10,000. And so this income elasticity turns out to be 1. So here is a measure of income elasticity for bread. Here is a measure of income elasticity for shoes. How do we interpret that? Again, go back to this formula right here. 1 is a measure of so 1 equals the percentage change in demand. 1% increase in income will lead to a 1% change in demand. This says a 1% increase in income will lead to a 0.33% increase in demand. So we're not going to see as big an increase in demand for bread, given the same increase in income, as we would for shoes. So this is a measure of income elasticity. Producers, of course, are interested in how income elastic is their good. If we go into a recession and incomes fall, what's going to happen to the demand for a consumer's product? If it's bread, it's not going to fall much. If it's shoes, it's going to fall a lot. So we have one more discussion of elasticity, and that'll be cross-price elasticity.